From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents The Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
97.9 FM, WHAV. This is the Open Mic Show. I'm your host, Tim Coco, and we are live, and I'll prove it. It's May 8th at 6:32. Thank you for joining us tonight. Coming up after the 7 o'clock news, we're going to have two newsmakers with us. We're going to have David Goudsward, who's been on the program before, Open Mic Show historian, and his brother Scott Goudsward. They are both authors, very good authors, have produced quite a few books. David more in the non-fiction area, although he's been changing that lately, and we'll talk about that. And Scott Goudsward, who has done quite a bit in the horror mystery genre. Now, why are they here? Well, they're going to be discussing this new book. Those of you watching on television, it's called Murder Among Friends. It's an anthology of mysteries inspired by the life and work of Haverhill's own John Greenleaf Whittier. Now, yesterday at Whittier Birthplace, quite a few of the authors who contributed to this book were on hand. And tonight we had actually hoped to have Edith Maxwell join us. She's from Amesbury. She's a best-selling author in her own right. She contributed to this book. And unfortunately, she has become ill, not because of the show, I hope. She had a cough yesterday, so I'm going to take her word for it, and we miss her. I really enjoyed meeting her yesterday, along with some of the others. But this is Murder Among Friends is the second in a series. Last year, the book Snowbound with Zombies came out, both edited by David Goudsward, who will be joining us on the open mic after the 7 o'clock news. Just tuning in again, this is the Open Mic Show live on 97.9 FM WHAV and also simulcast by our friends at 8C Media Channel 22 on Comcast in Haverhill. So you can see a radio show there as well. And, of course, on Facebook, WHAV's Facebook page. There is a video stream there in high definition of the program. And, there's always more ways. Also at WHAV.tv. Now, if you go to WHAV.net, you can still get to it by going to the tune-in area of the website. And so the TV program is there. Now, for audio listeners, there's all kinds of ways. Again, besides FM, there's your stream. You can get it from WHAV.net. You can use your TuneIn app. You can use your Roku app. You can use your iTunes and Apple TV boxes, all kinds of ways. Very, very modern operation here. All right, we have a couple of outstanding trivia questions and prizes. First, let's go to the usual one. If you know someone having a birthday in June or a couple celebrating in June, wish them a happy birthday or a happy anniversary by simply calling the Open Mic Show 978-374-1900. 978-374-1900. Simply wish the person a happy birthday or a couple a happy anniversary. Chris in Master Control or Cindy in Master Control will take their names and put them in a hat, and we'll draw the winner on the last Monday of the month. Very, very easy. So please participate. You must know someone. June weddings used to be a big deal, so there should be June anniversaries, right? So let's hear about that. All right. Now we also have, and I have to tell you, our very generous friends at Kimball Tavern Antiques, corner of Salem and South Main Streets, have been more than generous. They've given us the clues for a trivia question. Oh, by the way, let me back up a bit. The birthday or anniversary cake winner will receive a free 7-inch cake, choice of vanilla or chocolate, baked fresh by Albee D's Second Generation Italian Bakery, 140 South Main Street in Bradford. All right, now back to the Kimball Tavern Antiques trivia question. Okay. Some of you have this. I know you do. And with the clues, maybe you weren't tuned in last week and missed how much more of the answer has come forward. The original question is, who's the man on Lowell Avenue who collected hubcaps? And he was very obvious. Apparently they were all over his house, all over his yard. And the story goes, and I no longer remember if I'm embellishing it or not, but I guess there was a big pothole near his house, and people would lose their hubcaps as they drove by. And so he made a collection of them and traded in them. All right. So the original question was name the man, first and last name, and his nickname. Well, the nickname has been given. It's Keista. Keista. That's his nickname. And his first name is Charlie. So almost all of it's there now. All you have to do is give the last name of the man who collected hubcaps on Lowell Avenue in Haverhill. And okay, this goes back a few years, but I know some of the old-timers here, no offense, I'm an old-timer too, will have that answer. So we are really that close. All right, so we have that. Now, I want to tell you about some programming news because I think you'll be interested in this. The Haverhill High School Athletic Hall of Fame inauguration takes place Saturday night at the new Caleb Dustin Hunking School in Haverhill. Now, WHAV broadcast from there recently with the Reach Higher program education forum. So WHAV is going back there Saturday night. I'm not exactly sure of the time because there's a 5 o'clock reception and 6 o'clock program. We'll probably start a little bit before the main program, but maybe not at the beginning of the reception. But we're still working that out. That's for Saturday. But Hector Longo is going to be the WHAV Master of Ceremonies, bringing you the program, bringing you interviews, maybe with the athletic director, Tom O'Brien, maybe with some of the inductees. And well, let's hope we get Carlos Pena on that program. So he's certainly going to do the work. So WHAV FM 97.9 is going to broadcast live from the Haverhill High School Athletic Hall of Fame inauguration. Now, if you're already planning to go, great. If you're thinking about going, do that. They certainly could use it. I don't know when the cutoff is for buying tickets, but if for some reason you're going to be at home or in the car and you want to hear what's going on, tune in to WHAV 97.9 FM for the live broadcast of the Haverhill High School Athletic Hall of Fame inauguration. Now, the inductees here, we'll just go through the list. Kate Abramovich, 1989. Andy Alsop, 1997. Matt Battistini, 1978. Dwayne Carlisle, 1983. Dan Conway, 1976. Heidi Haninian, I hope I have that right, 1989. Kerry Horgan DeVries, 1988. John Ottaviani, who doesn't know Coach O? John Ottaviani, 1957, Coach Athletic Director. I just mentioned Carlos Pena, 1995. Mary Skeena, 1983. And everyone knows Coach Kevin Woelfel. All will be recognized at the inaugural event at Hunking School. I'll throw this out there. If you know a business who would like to sponsor WHAB's broadcast, they can also dial the same number, 978-374-1900. These events are rather costly. A lot of technology had to have been purchased that we're still trying to defray the cost for these different live events. So certainly, one, hope you tune in. Two, if you're able to sponsor, even better, 978-374-1900. All right, that brings us through the major items. Let's go look at some of the news items that we might discuss. We're going to have open lines until 7 o'clock. Again, 978-374-1900. The Open Mic Show, going back more than 50 years now, is your chance to actually call and be heard on the air, to vent your frustrations or just to share a good word. So what's the good word or the frustration about this past weekend? Well, the rain is certainly something that was frustrating to many, but it was a wonderful weekend for Haverhill. First Fridays by Creative Haverhill. We had guests on the program last week to talk about it. First Fridays kicked off, and by all accounts, very, very successful. Businesses turned on their lights that normally aren't open early evening, and even some empty storefronts got put to use with acts and performances and music, and others that are normally open added to their program, like Battlegrounds Coffee Company with their River Bards poetry series. So it was apparently a resounding success. First Fridays. Then Saturday, really, again, cloudy skies, a lot of tarps, a lot of things like that, but wall-to-wall concerts on the Better Block between Howe and Main Streets along Merrimack Street. I don't know, I just heard Chris hit something, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if that was for me. You made a noise in there hitting something, so I didn't know if that was for me to get my attention. Live radio, folks, these things happen, because the mics are always on live radio. But how many of you went? What did you think? Mass Development, the state agency, it's quasi-public, they call it. It's been set up on its own, but it's really a state-operated thing. Mass Development, really, we don't know what it cost, but they were behind this, I think, to a great extent in putting together this Better Block. They brought in a company from Texas to help set it up. There were planning sessions at the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce and other places, and then they worked with O Positive Festival, and it's hard to know where O Positive Festival leaves off and Better Block comes on. Maybe that's even better that we don't know, because collaboration is certainly a good thing. So there were concerts, there was food. There were new bump outs along the street. Now you see them on Washington Street, where the sidewalk kind of comes out into the width of a parking space, so that a restaurant or a coffee shop can have a little added area for dining. Well, there wasn't time to go tear up the street and put in the bump outs, and maybe we're not sure who would want them. So they did the next best thing. They made temporary ones that will be there all summer. So there's some lasting effects of this effort. So there's some bump outs now. I think one in front of A1 Deli and one in front of Barrett's Specialty Foods. So that, and I played a very, very small role in that. I'm on the Haverhill License Commission, and those things needed last-minute permission, and they were granted. There was a beer garden as well. Again, needed permission, and that was granted. Everyone working together to make downtown a better place. Well, who went? Give us a call, 978-374-1900. And if you didn't go, Chris, could you take care of that? If you didn't go, tell us why. Did the rain keep you away? Did something concern you, or it just not your thing? And if you did go, what excited you the most? Really be happy to know about that. In any event, just all kinds of. I'm going to eventually have this camera set up so I can close this door, because it's. Sometimes I get easily distracted. I'm getting old, folks. All right, so 978-374-1900. Okay, get those thoughts ready. Start dialing in. We're going to take a brief break right now for the American Civil Liberties Union Civil Liberties Minute, produced right here in Massachusetts and heard on WHAV.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
For more in-depth coverage of the news, visit WHAV's website at whav.net.
Catch the wave!
On air or online, 97.9 WHAV serves you. Twice an hour weekdays, keep up to date with exclusive local news. Find out more about civic events on Community Spotlight every quarter hour and better prepare with wave weather every 30 minutes. For talk, there's Tom Hartman, weekdays at noon, and the Open Mic Show Monday nights. Mass Moments, Melinda's Garden Moment, Civil Liberties Minute, Workers' Independent News, and Jim Hightower complete the spectrum. Hear classic comedy and drama 7 nights a week at 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Finally, a unique blend of hits from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, as well as soft gold at night. Stay with 97.9 WHAV, the only behavioral-based news source.
Will the Supreme Court approve of overt attempts to destroy democracy in America? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In Wisconsin in 2012, although the Democrats won the popular vote for state assembly, they lost one of 3 seats that they had held because before the election, the state legislature had gerrymandered the electoral map to ensure a big Republican win. Similarly, in North Carolina, where registered Democrats outnumber Republicans, the legislature carved the congressional districts into a predetermined result of 10 Republicans and 3 Democrats. When the state rep who drew the map was asked why 10 and 3, he explained, quote, "I do not believe it is possible to draw a map of 11 Republicans and 2 Democrats. To be sure, in the few states Democrats control, they have gerrymandered as well." The case challenging the Wisconsin affront to democracy is going before the United States Supreme Court. In years past, the Supreme Court's response to the democracy-destroying gerrymandering laws has been, oh, it's kind of bad, but we really won't do anything about it. But now gerrymandering has run rampant. If the Supreme Court does not restrain democracy-destroying gerrymandering, you can just imagine the dinner conversation in the not-too-distant future when someone says, "Remember when we didn't used to have one-party rule in our state, in our country?" The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
It's the Open Mic Show on 97.9 WHAV FM. I'm your host, Tim Coco. Thank you for joining us this evening for another live edition. And again, I'm going to prove it. It's 6:49 on May 8th. May 8th, you know, that name, that comes to mind. Is that Victory in Europe Day, VE Day from World War II? May 8th, I think it is. Someone want to correct me on that? I'm trying to get you to call. I'm trying to get you to participate. 978-374-1900. Victory in Europe, May 8th, I think. Chris, you know that? You're saying yes, yes, yes. Okay, no, he's just agreeing with anything I say. That's why we have him here. But in any event, Cindy, how's your World War II history? All right. Okay, folks, I have to rely on you. Not getting help from the staff here. I think May 8th, Victory in Europe Day, VE Day. All right, and what does that mean, folks? For you younger ones, well, Germany surrendered to the Allies, World War II. Italy had already surrendered, and it took another few months for Japan to surrender, the Axis from World War II. All right, there's my quick history lesson until someone calls and says, "No, Tim, you got it wrong." That happens once in a while, but I think, what? You are correct. Oh, there it is. Oh, Chris, you checked. Yes. Wow. He's actually paying attention. That's great stuff. All right. So in any event, now David Goudsward and Scott Goudsward are apparently in studio. They'll be joining us in about 10 minutes here on the Open Mic Show right after the news. And just in case you're just tuning in, let me tell you why they're here. Edith Maxwell was also supposed to join us, but has taken ill. But it was such a pleasure to meet Edith at the Whittier Birthplace Authors Day yesterday, and we're so glad so many of you came out. It was a nice event, and the new book, Murder Among Friends, has been introduced. It's the second in an annual series of anthologies. inspired by the work of Haverhill's favorite son, poet John Greenleaf Whittier. Now, this was introduced at his birthplace in Haverhill at 305 Whittier Road, which, by the way, I suppose very soon, and that's a good thing. We should do, this stuff sneaks up on me. We'll probably give away a first person who asks. We'll give away tonight a free pass. Keep track of that, Chris, because I won't. I'm old and feeble. A free pass to John Greenleaf Whittier Birthplace. The Birthplace is now open for the season. By the way, if you are a member of the military or military family, it's a Blue Star Museum, just like the Haverhill Firefighting Museum is as well. And so there's free admission at all times to military families. So keep that in mind. Birthplace will also be taking part in, this is one we can hold on our own, what is it called? First Period Saturdays? Something like that. It's a Whittier Birthplace is so-called First Period house built in 1688. So we're going to be talking about Murder Among Friends and the book that preceded it last year, Snowbound with Zombies. Great authors, award-winning, best-selling authors have contributed to these two books, edited by David Goudsward, and their contributions in, I think, the first one by his brother Scott. You've met them both here on the Open Mic Show. Hope you welcome them back with open arms again. Let's take our first call. You are on the Open Mic Show.
Yeah, let's get these calls coming in.
Yes, well, we needed someone to kick it off, and you're not shy.
Yes, I am.
You are?
People don't believe that, but it's true.
All right. Well, see, we needed to spur you to action here.
I figure that David is a history guy, so he probably has the answer for you on that May 8th thing.
No, actually, I think Chris also just confirmed it online, but I don't know what
yeah.
site he went to, but he just Googled it. All right. Yeah, but is that your memory too? Victory in Europe?
I think I'm not much on dates like that.
All right. Well, I think so, but we'll and I think Chris confirmed it, but David will tell us probably some wealthy story about Haverhill on VE Day. If he's listening, he's in the other room. He actually probably listens more when he's at home than he's here because he's locked in the soundproof area.
Oh, yeah.
But in any event, what's on your mind, Brian? Are you just trying to help me out here?
Not a whole lot, but a couple of weeks ago, you had mentioned to me on the air about my something about my status on the local Commission on Disability.
That's right. They're expecting you at the end of the month.
Well, the funny thing about that is no matter what I say, they just can't seem to accept the fact that I'm not on the commission. I mean, I'm not opposed to the commission. I help them out in any way I can. I'm one of the founders, in fact. But I wonder, the statute has been modified, and it can include up to 13 members now. And I'm thinking, if they think that, if I'm officially still on there, that's causing a problem. That's nothing could be further from the truth, and it makes me wonder, politically speaking, and I'm not a politician by any means, there's some game playing going on here.
Oh, I don't know. I think people just miss you, Brian. That's all.
Oh, we're in touch. It's just.
And actually, I think
was on the Haverhill High School renovation building committee, and when I stopped going to meetings, I got a letter telling me that I was off the committee. Because I was getting more accomplished by meeting offline with the head architect, and that's how I did that. But
now,
I wasn't officially a committee member at that point. I got a letter.
Was that under Jim Fiorentini or John
Yep.
Guerin? I'm beginning to forget who did that project.
Well, I was appointed to the committee by John Guerin, and I was removed from the committee by Fiorentini, which was okay with me. I didn't mind that because my interest was purely access.
Okay,
And,
so making sure that the new renovation provided adequate access.
And I worked very well with the head architect on that program, that project, and it came out very well.
Yeah, that was a $27 million project, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, did it ended on budget, is that right?
There were some things that came in under budget.
Okay, so you see another successful project. I have to say, I've been there several times now in the last year for different reasons. I think one of them was a political candidates forum by the League of Women Voters, which, by the way, they're having a fundraiser. I want to get this in. They're having a fundraiser Saturday, or it's a Friday. I will get that information. My goodness. We have it out online at whav.net. But I knew, though, they're going to be handing out their new brochures. One, because I'm bringing them. But I have to say, I was also there a couple of weeks ago for an event where the mayor talked with students kind of casually, kind of a focus group. And we had a good story on WHAV about one who'll be graduating, a Haverhill High School senior, who almost dropped out in his sophomore year. And we learned from him what the secret was to keeping him in school. And in his case, it turned out to be night school. But I'm getting away from my point. The point is that the building is beautiful. That was a great renovation, and I think we were able to do what a lot of people thought we wouldn't be able to do, is renovate in such a way that it feels like a brand new school.
Yep. And plus, it's very secure.
I noticed that, considering I had to show, I don't know, several forms of ID, get my picture taken, get a label made. And, we didn't do that when I was in school, but I guess we didn't have the problems.
Yeah, it wasn't necessary back then.
It's kind of a shame that it's necessary now, I suppose, but I guess it was never a good idea, no matter when it was, to allow anyone to wander through the halls of the high school. So I agree with the security.
Yeah.
But in any event, well, so I'm gonna try to go to that Disabilities Commission meeting and just kind of see. I just think they miss you, Brian. I think it's nothing more complicated than that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just a phone call away, and when I was working for the city full time, and that was partially funded by the commission, partially funded by the city of Haverhill. I did a lot more then, and some direct service and advocacy for local citizens with disabilities.
All right. Well, I'll let you know when I find out.
Yeah.
And I do thank you for calling. We are just about out of time this hour. Any last words?
Last words? No.
I don't mean them in final words.
I shall return.
That works. Okay, well, thank you very much, Brian. You have no more birthdays then for this month?
No, I don't believe so. They're all out-of-towners.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much, Brian, for kicking off the phone calls here on the Open Mic Show.
Okay.
All right, good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, we're about to go to local news. Just want to remind you, coming up after local news and weather, we're going to have David and Scott Goudsward here on the program. They're going to discuss the two different books that have been edited by David, and all proceeds from the books are being donated to Whittier Birthplace. And the last year's book was Snowbound with Zombies, still available for sale on Amazon and at Whittier Birthplace. This year's new book, Murder Among Friends. You're going to learn a lot about the authors, best-selling, award-winning authors who contributed their talents to make these two books the great reading that they are. And we're going to go to local news. We'll be back after that.
Open mic.
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:01.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. Beginning today, residents will see more reminders about buckling up while driving. Methuen is joining with 200 police departments across the state, along with Massachusetts State Police, taking part in the national Click It or Ticket campaign. It is organized through the Massachusetts Highway Safety Division and runs through May 29th. More people buckling up means more lives saved, said Methuen Police Chief Joseph Solomon. Our offices will be enforcing the seatbelt and child passenger safety laws so that fewer people are needlessly injured or killed in crashes in Methuen. According to the state's annual seatbelt study, drivers here wear seatbelts at a lower rate than the rest of the country, 78% compared to 90%. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reports that out of 172 people killed in motor vehicle crashes in the Commonwealth in 2015, 64% were not wearing safety belts. Seatbelts save lives and too many people are not wearing them, Mayor Stephen Zandi said. We hope that our participation in this campaign will encourage more people to buckle up every time they get into a vehicle. Those wishing to schedule an appointment with Methuen Police to have a child seat installed may call 978-983-8698. By all accounts, Haverhill's big weekend was a giant success, with throngs of residents venturing downtown Friday and Saturday despite damp conditions, and then venturing out to the countryside for Sunday's brighter sky. Like the debutante stepping out to society for the first time, Haverhill's Deb was a reimagined downtown, some of it temporary, beginning with nightlife during Creative Haverhill's first Friday. Shops opened their doors, performers put on shows, bands played music, and poetry was read. While no one was keeping track of receipts, business owners hoped cash registers rang enough. Saturday's Better Block along Lower Merrimack Street delivered something for all senses: colorful art, loud music, aromas from kitchens, new foods to taste, and beer to sip, and fist-gripping bicycle handles. The block, backed by the state's commercial finance agency, Mass Development, was designed as a prototype to attract more local business, encourage more time outdoors, add more beauty, and bring more bicycles and foot traffic. It achieved its goals as organizers hoped that the downtown block would bring more friends, laughter, and conversations. Being an election year, most city officials made appearances, some greeting voters from new street-side dining bump-outs along the city's main drag, while others worked the crowd. Almost all ignored elephants along the street, a large swath of promising yet still empty storefronts. The state is all but betting the farm on downtown Haverhill, spending tens of millions of dollars to prove a post-industrial gateway city can make a comeback. Speaking of farms, Sunday's sun and mild temperatures brought out visitors to Whittier Birthplace to hear authors read from their contributions to a new Whittier-inspired book. Murder Among Friends, the second anthology in an annual series of new works edited by David Goudsward, made its debut Sunday afternoon. Best-selling author Edith Maxwell, who contributed Murder in the Summer Kitchen, was the first to read from her work.
In the gloaming of the 11th month afternoon, my attention had wandered from the literary conversation in John Greenleaf Whittier's parlor. The unmistakable crack of a gun brought me to my senses, and I jumped in my seat. Another report followed in quick succession. All the eyes in the room went wide with mine. John's, my niece Faith's, those of several other friends, and Celia Thaxter, John's famous friend, whose work we friends were here to discuss.
Susan Oleksiw read from her Miss Larcom Meets the Neighbors, and despite the dark genre, Judi Calhoun's reading of her Exposed for Murder brought laughter.
"Is it a raccoon?" came the nasal Fran Drescher voice from inside. "I told you to take out the garbage. You never listened to me." "Shut up, Mona," the pudgy man yelled. "Your voice will wake the dead. Go back to sleep." "You don't have to go be so insulting," she whined. "Maybe you should sleep on the sofa."
Greg Norris, a screenplay writer who wrote 2 episodes of Star Trek Voyager, read from Antiques.
The image shouldn't have seemed out of place. Vivi Driscoll, still in her party hat and lilac sweater, except for that particular screen, whose camera was aimed at the back patio. The streamers on the wheelchair's handlebar whipped madly about in the early spring breeze. And then a second figure passed across the patio, a man. She only saw him briefly as he wheeled Vivi Driscoll away and out of sight. The man had a mustache.
While some of the weekend's activities are temporary, a number of elements will remain for the foreseeable future. Murals, such as one by Brian Canty, will continue to brighten the downtown. Outdoor dining bump-outs will remain all summer, and First Fridays continues next month and into fall. While downtown Haverhill's Better Block was temporary, City Councilor Andy Vargas wants residents to know how it will continue transforming the city. He has invited Mass Development's Transformative Development Initiative's Noah Koretz to speak at Tuesday's council meeting about the next steps. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Tim Coco.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Harry Horton. France's President-elect Emmanuel Macron took his first steps towards governing on Monday, but his party faces a tough task in next month's parliamentary elections. President Trump ignored advice from President Barack Obama not to hire the now fired National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. And more than 1 million children have fled South Sudan, with over 1 million more believed to be displaced in the country.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Best with wave weather. Partly to mostly cloudy, upper 30s through the night. During the day Tuesday, limited sun, a lot of clouds, maybe a spot shower or a sprinkle in the upper 50s. Periods of clouds, upper 30s on Tuesday night. Wednesday, partial sun with a brief shower in the upper 50s. This is Gary Best. Your next wave weather is coming up in 30 minutes.
For more in-depth coverage of the news, visit WHAV's website at WHAV.net. Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system, this is 97.9 WHAV.
Catch the wave, WHAV. Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
97.9 FM WHAV. This is the Open Mic Show. I'm your host, Tim Coco, and now joining us in studio, the brothers Goudsward. David Goudsward to my left, and to my far left, Scott Goudsward.
Hello.
Everyone is here. Now, why are we here? Well, that's that's a profound...
I didn't realize we were doing philosophy tonight.
But anyway, here's the biggest reason is brand new book, just been released, available at Whittier Birthplace, which is now open for the season, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can also get it on Amazon and probably other places. We'll talk to our friends about that. David Goudsward, I can say friends, right?
All right. I'm not going to quibble live.
All right. David Goudsward edited this year's book as well as last year's. We can now call them annuals. This year is called Murder Among Friends.
Dum, dum, dum.
And for those of you who understand the irony of that name, hopefully you're getting it. We have to maybe give a hint once in a while. But anyway, Murder Among Friends, mysteries inspired by the life and works of John Greenleaf Whittier. Also, we have, because it's still available, again, at Whittier Birthplace, I think it's also in the Friend Shop at Haverhill Public Library, Snowbound with Zombies. Now, Snowbound, another great book in this series of anthologies. This one also features the work of Scott Goudsward. So if you have questions for the authors, 978-374-1900. Well, that's we sort of gave something away there, because David is the editor, but somehow, some of his words sneak into this book.
Somehow.
Mysteriously.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, so go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to. I don't know if I want to give away your pseudonym.
Oh, well, go ahead. It's the worst kept pseudonym in the world.
Worst kept secret pseudonym in the world, and it is David Bernard.
Correct.
Is our David Bernard.
Which is an inside joke because I get more mail addressed to me as my wife's husband using her last name.
Now, I want to point out something I hadn't pointed out before, and this, I think many of you will resonate with you. This book, the new book, is dedicated to the memories of librarian Margaret Eager, Haverhill High School librarian Margaret Eager. She was also my neighbor for many years in Bradley Brook neighborhood, and journalist Tom Vardabedian, whom I worked with at the Haverhill Gazette. Both passed away in the last year. Each used different techniques but shared a common goal, the preservation of the history of Haverhill. That was very nice of you, David, to do that.
Completely out of character, right?
Somewhat.
Yes.
Yeah. There was no disagreement there. Chris and Cindy, open up your mic and say yes. Open the mic and simply say yes. And then.
What am I saying yes to?
That
Another country heard from.
David is acting out of character by doing nice things.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be awfully hard if you have to sit here talking to yourself for the next half hour.
Did you bribe him? My goodness. Never mind, Chris. All right. Now, if you want to know why I'm so friendly with these people, well...
I do.
David and I went to Haverhill High School together. I think we went to Constantino School together.
Yeah, and I think we shared a therapist after going to Haverhill High School together.
Well, I don't know about
Had
that.
to go by horse and buggy?
No, I hadn't invented the horse yet.
And then Scott, well, I knew Scott mostly because he was David's brother, but he was not the one who ate cornflakes and milk with his fingers. That was the other brother.
That's the one we don't talk about.
I've forgotten about that.
I was hoping to forget about that.
But of course, we were all younger and less suave, as they say. All right. But in addition to these books, I want to...
I should, before we go further, I just want to clarify one teensy little thing.
Yeah.
Snowbound with Zombies is stories of supernatural, light horror. The second book is actually what the title would suggest. It's mysteries. So the books are not related to each other in terms of content, merely the Whittier angle. And that's the way we're going to continue the series. We've just decided on the topic for the third one. And again, it's an entirely different genre. So each book stands by itself as well as being related to the Whittier.
Very, very good point. Do you want to give a sneak preview of next year's book?
I could do that because I know the editor.
Yes, that's why I thought you would be well suited to give that information.
The topic for next year is going to be classic ghost stories. Now, when I say classic, I'm not talking about just straightforward ghost haunted house, ooh, chains and goat, the whole routine.
What about Whittier and Sasquatch ghosts?
No, maybe a Whittier ghost. I'm not sure about Sasquatch. You'll have to write it for me. We're also talking about something like an episode of Scooby-Doo, which has somebody dressed up like a ghost, and it turns out to be the next door neighbor trying to drive people away. And that is a mystery, but it still has the classical ghost trappings. So, trappings. Yes, I'm an English major. It's going to be a little mix. It's going to be a few mysteries. It's going to be a few ghost stories. There may even be some other things in there. That's why I don't do all the writing. I just do all the hitting.
Well, you spoke yesterday at the debut of the book at Whittier Birthplace in Whittier's shoe shop across the street from the Birthplace. Matter of fact, Chris, a photograph of Chris. A photograph of why don't we show the group first? There's the group of writers sitting in the chairs, and behind them, through the doors of the carriage house, those of you watching on television or on WHAV's Facebook page or WHAV.tv, it really is a kind of an accidentally great shot. Because there is the Whittier Birthplace with a stone wall in the background. And David, would you mind, left to right, telling our listeners and our viewers who was in this photograph?
That is Edith Maxwell, who is from Amesbury, and she is a cozy writer. She has a series of books out featuring a Quaker midwife who is a neighbor and friend of John Greenleaf Whittier in Amesbury. The stories are set there. They're actually a lot of fun.
What is a cozy?
A cozy is a specific type of a mystery in which nothing happens on screen. Nobody gets shot, no blood splattering, no arterial spray. It's basically, you think Murder, She Wrote.
Okay.
Murder, She
Stuff
Wrote.
I don't write.
Yeah. Murder, She Wrote was 12 seasons of cozies.
I see. So the star arrives after the dirty deed.
Correct.
Okay.
The next two are the Dent sisters, and Scott's going to have to tell me which one is which.
One with the red sweater is Karen Dent, and the one in the black sweater is Roxanne Dent.
And Roxanne's been on the program.
They've both been on the show a couple times. Yep.
They've both been on the program. They're both in Snowbound with Zombies. They are not in the Murder Among Friends because they were writing stories for a collection of crime noir novels that were put out by the New England Journalist Association. I cannot think of the name of the collection. Can you?
Murder Inc.
Ah, clever. INK.
That's why we bring Scott.
Pretty much.
And then I have to say, I'm fascinated by something, and maybe I should have known, maybe I did know and forgot, but the next person in the picture... I'm glad we're on live radio so I can learn how to speak English. The next person is Greg Norris. He and the lady next to him, who is Judi Calhoun, are both from the North Great Woods of New Hampshire. They actually drive down just for this event and then stay over and then head back. Gentleman with the hat behind it is Judy's husband. But Greg is probably the most prolific and consistently good writer I've ever met. He's done episodes of television shows, most notably Star Trek Voyager. Well, that's the one that got my attention, I have to admit. Either I overlooked it, forgot about it, but Star Trek Voyager, I mean, major television series in the franchise, as they call it. And he, do you know off the top of your head which episodes he wrote?
No, I do not off the top.
The only one I can remember is this one, I believe it's called Gravity Well. It's featuring Tuvok.
Okay. If you're familiar with the character, Tuvok was the Vulcan.
That's all I remember from it.
But, I mean, very, very... and I guess there's a common thread between these two books. They're all well-known, very talented authors.
And Scott.
And Scott is a well-known and very talented author as well.
We're walking home.
We're going to talk about another book that he co-wrote, as equal standing with his brother. And I'll just introduce it now, just to make sure Scott gets his due.
Gets my screen time.
I'm hurt.
Gets my cred.
Horror Guide to Northern New England, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. That's the latest from the two.
Yes, number 3 in the series.
3. What were the first 2? I know, but I want the listeners.
Oh, I see. I thought you read them, Tim.
I have autographed copies. I mean, come on.
You signed a copy for him?
I don't think I did.
I don't think I did either.
I wonder who those signatures are from.
Probably the Dent sisters.
Oh, dear. The first one was Horror Guide to Massachusetts. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It is just this state. And I'll go over the concept after I remember the name of the second one. Horror Guide to Florida.
Where you now live.
Yes, which is why I keep blanking it out. The horror guides are, I'm going to show my age here. Shut up, Scott. Gazetteers. Basically, they are alphabetical listings of locations, both fictional and real, and they are where a story is set in the horror genre, or where they filmed an episode of something, or where somebody famous is buried.
Or you could just call it an index.
Combination movie guide, recommended reading list,
and travel guide. I know people who've taken the Massachusetts guide and walked through Salem with it to find all the different locations in Salem.
And we'll spend a little more time with that. We're going to go back to Snowbound with Zombie and, of course, the latest, Murder Among Friends. But first we have to take a break for Community Spotlight, because that's what public radio does. Gives you the news of happenings in your community. We'll be back on 97.9 FM WHAV in just a minute.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
For live and local talk, listen to the Open Mic Show, Monday nights. You can also see the program at whav.tv. WHAV, the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free. One of the things I've always wanted to do with a talk show is to not just get involved with the topics, but to get inside the person behind the topics. Because for every topic, for every issue, there's a person behind it with passion and compassion for whatever that issue is. And that's what Your Hometown is all about.
Your Hometown with Mark LeMay, Friday nights at 6:30 on 97.9 FM WHAV.
Community Spotlight.
Haverhill seniors and Americans with Disability Act eligible residents can obtain transportation from Monday appointments to Leahy Clinic in Peabody, as well as several Boston hospitals. The cost is $8 one way or $16 round trip. Companions may accompany individuals for $4 one way or $8 round trip. For more information or to schedule a ride, contact the Merrimack Valley Regional Transit Authority at 978-469-6878, option 3, or Haverhill Council on Aging at 978-374-2390, extensions 11 or 16. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at whav.net or email news@whav.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Diane Carr.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
97.9 FM, WHAV. Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. I want to give a shout out to Master Control. We have Cindy and Chris keeping us on the air, and apparently they're doing a good job of it, despite our best efforts in this side of the room.
Well, challenge accepted.
We can fix that.
Let's pull some of these wires out here. All right. In any event, let's get back to our main theme, because frankly, it's new. It's brand new.
It's shiny.
Murder Among Friends. Yeah, and what do you call that?
It's a different texture than the other book.
But it's similar to all of these books. Well, it's different from last year's Snowbound, but there's a sort of a velvet texture to it. And you had a word for that yesterday.
Laminate.
Yeah, it's plastic.
I can just sit back and relax. Let Abbott and Costello do the work.
But in any event,
this is a matte finish versus a gloss finish.
But it's a very, very high quality. Now, would you like to tell us, David, about... we've already introduced the authors who spoke at yesterday's event. Oh, by the way, let's do one more. Chris, photograph. Let's do the photo of the woman at the WHAV microphone. We've already introduced her. She was going to be on the program tonight, fell ill. Hope it had nothing to do with the donuts I brought to the meeting.
No,
There it is. So she's holding the book there. It's probably a better way to, those of you who are watching on television, those of you on radio, well, there's a nice woman in front of a WHAV microphone holding a copy of the book, Murder Among Friends. And David, this is Edith Maxwell, is that right?
This is indeed. She works at the home in Amesbury, as well as, she is also very prolific. I believe she currently has 3 active series of cozies going on at the same time.
Now, actually, tell us about, you started on this during her original introduction, and we'll spend a little bit of time with each author in the book. But the character that she brings to Murder Among Friends is not someone created just for this book, is that right?
Yes and no.
All right. I thought the answer was going to be simpler than that, but no, with David, it's
very
going to be
vague.
yes and
Well,
no.
you did start with philosophy tonight.
I did.
The character herself, Rose Carroll, is fictional, but she is a Quaker. That material is historically accurate. I think, in fact, Edith is a practicing Quaker. I won't swear to it because I have a memory like a sieve. But Whittier is a regular recurring character. Lucy Larcom, his mill girl woman who happens to be a friend.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to phrase that doesn't sound vaguely datish.
Yeah, right.
And she sets them in Amesbury, and she knows that town as well as any historian out there. And she sets them in around historical events. The story in Murder Among Friends, as an example, is set after the Civil War, and somebody has come to town who apparently has a grudge against our beloved Quaker poet for his abolitionist material.
Yeah, so very
She's
very close to the history there.
Yeah, I mean,
there are a lot of people who Whittier risked his life.
Yeah. If you read her Rose Carroll Quaker Midwife series, I guess it's called, Murder Among Friends fits in with the series. The two books are in Amesbury as well, and you can literally point out landmarks that were or still are in Amesbury.
Very good, very good. Now, we have, Chris, why don't we bring up the last of those photographs just to get them out of the way, and I think it's Mr. Norris. And can you tell us about his contribution to this particular book, Murder Among Friends? And there's this man with a beard to his right. I think it's Whittier.
I don't know, but he's a damn good-looking fella, isn't he?
Kind of sketchy looking.
Well, you can see this is where this is why police have so much trouble at an accident scene getting us.
Wait a minute here. I don't think I like that.
All right. Anyway, so
Greg Norris has a fun story. Of course, Greg Norris wouldn't know how to write a bad story if you put a gun to his head. I hate that about him. His character, the protagonist of the story, is a 100-year-old film actress who starred back in the 60s in a version of The Death Ship of Harpswell. There's your Whittier tie-in. And
she was actually at a, I don't know if it was a nursing home.
A nursing home in Ward Hill.
Whittier.
Yeah, it's in Ward Hill, apparently.
And it's called Whittier something.
Whittier, yeah, it's not
so
real.
There's lots of little connections like that.
Yeah. But that's, I like to think of each of these stories has one strong Whittier hook. And in his story, her hook, I got the pronouns right there now. Yeah. In his story,
That's back to an earlier topic, but we'll save that.
We'll let that one go.
Watch as Dave focuses on his train of thought not to derail. The story, the hook for this one is The Death Ship of Harpswell. And Edith's, it's Whittier himself at the Whittier home as another example.
I'm hoping our listeners and viewers actually know what all these references are, and if not, you should learn more about John Greenleaf Whittier, born in Haverhill, 1807, and like most people in the Haverhill Citizens Hall of Fame, left Haverhill at one point, 1836, but his birthplace remains, and he didn't go too far. He went to Amesbury, which maybe thankfully he did, because it gives us Edith Maxwell and other great friends. All right, let's work in, about a minute before weather, why don't we work in any one of these other authors? You want to tell us
no pressure there.
About?
Well, I'll point out a couple of them. Pete Rawlik is a Florida-based writer, mostly of horror, but he's also a very well-versed in pulp. And his story is basically Charlie Chan's son, Jimmy.
Now, you always introduce a new word. We had cozy before, now we have pulp. For those who aren't familiar with the term, what is pulp?
Pulp are...
Other than, ground up paper.
The stuff in orange juice.
Yes.
Oh, that.
Thank you for helping.
That's why I'm here.
The 1930s and 40s introduced low-grade paper that made it inexpensive to produce magazines. You start seeing famous magazines like Weird Tales and Astounding Stories. And there was so much of a market that you start seeing names that are making a living at it. Robert Bloch, Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov.
Many of these authors, of course, ended up on the radio series X-1
Yes.
with their works. Yes.
But they're called pulps because it was real low-grade pulp wood paper.
All right, and so...
But his story is, and one of his big bugaboos, makes me look well-adjusted, frankly, is make things fit into the timeline. So he knows when every single Charlie Chan movie takes place, where every Mr. Wong TV episode takes place. And these stories that he writes take place specifically within that, basically, dogma. Charlie Chan's son in the movies goes into the Army from Hawaii, and he does a stint, apparently, in Whittier, Alaska, where he
Convenient.
Yes, well, that's the whole point. And it is a little darker than some of the other stories, but Corporal James Chan discovers that there's more to justice than just catching the bad guy and getting him arrested. And he sees the harsh reality of justice being meted out.
Now, you said something yesterday, and I think it's important, and I've started on this track before and I'm about to lose it again, but the...
Tough getting old, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the problems of getting older. We're going to go to weather in a second, but before we do, just give Chris a heads up. But your motive, and maybe that's the wrong word, but I believe you alluded to this yesterday when you spoke to the group, is to show that Whittier is still timely or perhaps timeless. Could you just elaborate on that for a second?
We have 2 books out, and they are never going to, they are to benefit the Whittier birthplace, plain and simple. And you do not make a lot of money selling books. That's just the way things are in this world today. But these books show that Whittier is still relevant enough to modern day society that there are new stories being generated that are inspired by his works. The Barefoot Boy, Snowbound. I mean, the original one, Snowbound with Zombies, I think there's like 2 stories in there that specifically derive from Snowbound, including the one that's obviously the one on the title, Snowbound with Zombies, which technically aren't really zombies, but that's kind of complicated to get into.
We'll save that
one.
All right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to take a break for local weather. By the way, those of you who are regular listeners to WHAV, I don't know if you heard Mark LeMay's new program last Friday night on WHAV. It's on every week, called Your Hometown. He actually interviewed, and
English major?
A little word inflection there.
So yeah, wrong place there. Rob Carolyn, one of our meteorologists, and I found it very, very interesting. I don't know who's on tonight, but we'll find out in just a second, and we'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show.
Open Mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:34.
Last year, WHAV helped local nonprofits by airing nearly 10,000 community spotlight messages. WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free.
If you're looking not only to make money, but also to make a difference, 97.9 WHAV wants you. WHAV, the only Haverhill-based news source, seeks enthusiastic, creative, and disciplined on-air underwriting and web advertising representatives. Account executives are responsible for developing and supporting WHAV's radio, digital, and non-traditional sales and development strategy. Prior sales experience is desired, but some training will be provided. Receive a generous and above-average commission rate and opportunities for growth. To apply, visit WHAV.net and click Contact and scroll down to Jobs. Otherwise, call 978-374-2300. 978-374-2111, extension 111. That's 978-374-2111, extension 111. Make money and make a difference at 97.9 WHAV.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Best with wave weather. Partly to mostly cloudy, upper 30s through the night. During the day Tuesday, limited sun, a lot of clouds, maybe a spot shower or a sprinkle in the upper 50s. Periods of clouds, upper 30s on Tuesday night. Wednesday, partial sun with a brief shower in the upper 50s. This is Gary Best. Your next wave weather is coming up in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
It's the Open Mic Show, 97.9 FM, WHAV. We have David and Scott Goudsward with us, and we're discussing the latest in what is now an annual series of anthologies inspired by the works of Haverhill poet John Greenleaf Whittier. The latest being Murder Among Friends. Now, we've talked about some of the authors to this book. And let's, why don't we ask about, Vicky Weisfeld.
Vicky Weisfeld is another cozy author. Probably not as well established as Edith or Susan Oleksiw, who are probably the two big names in this book in terms of the murder publishing industry. They're the well-known, well-established, prolific ones. Victoria's piece is an interesting one in that it's one of the few reprints I've ever done by somebody who's actually still alive. A reference there to the fact that I have Lucy Larcom in there. I have, obviously, Whittier himself and the lovely lady who lived out on the Isles of Shoals, Celia Thaxter.
Right.
Because I think they were just as well known in their day as Whittier was, but they have not sustained as well as he has, and I think that part of that is because they are not physically anchored to a location. There is no Celia Thaxter birthplace or Celia Thaxter home.
Oh, good point. So the trustees that and former Haverhill Mayor James Hazen Carlton, who acquired the birthplace, did quite a bit then to keep the name out there.
Yeah, I think if you have a physical location, I mean, Whittier's birthplace shows up in all three of the books we're talking. All three of the books, The Horror Guide to Massachusetts, Snowbound with Zombies, obviously, and in this one. In fact, it really shows up a lot in Murder Among Friends.
Vicky on the back cover, Victoria on the table of index.
Yeah, she decided at the last minute she wanted to use Vicky, and I didn't quite catch all the changes.
All right,
that's an editor's problem.
No, that's right. So The Flock.
Fun little piece. Of course, they're all fun little pieces. They're all involving one of the few that doesn't have a murder in it, too, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay.
A woman shows up in a small Ohio town, a train town. Nobody knows anything about her. She's rented a house, and there's suddenly odd things going on. She's not She's not being sociable. She's not maintaining the house. She just spends the whole day typing. And then one day, there's a window open, and some of the stuff she's typing has blown out the window, and they don't have any context on what she's talking about, and they start running rumors. And they damn near came to running her out of town because they were frightened by the material she was talking about.
Sounds like a very interesting story. All right, and let's see, who else would you like to take next?
I'd like to talk about Ken Faig.
Okay.
Ken Faig is a dear old friend of mine. One of the earliest Lovecraftian scholars. He's expert in another field we bring up, amateur journalism.
This is where we do one of those, like the old Saturday morning cartoons. Lovecraftian? Tell us about Lovecraftian so we can get the definition in there.
Oh, you're going to love where I go with this then.
This is going to be a long one.
Lovecraftian is the study of the works and correspondence of H.P. Lovecraft, the horror writer.
Right?
Howard Phillip.
And who visited Haverhill, but we're going to digress so far that we'll never get back, so go on.
Yeah, we don't want to bring up the Lovecraft in Florida book or the Lovecraft in Merrimack Valley book tonight.
We'll get to those. Okay.
But Ken Faig is a Lovecraftian scholar, but he's also an expert in amateur journalism. That's your cue. Oh, really? Tell me what that is.
Yeah, so we're going to have a glossary to this show coming up. But
folks, there will be a quiz later.
All right, so amateur journalism, which is also, if you're a follower of WHAV and WHAV.net, we've had some stories about another Haverhillite, Tryout Smith.
Charles W. Tryout Smith.
We're gonna keep heading off this cliff, but go on.
It's just getting steeper and steeper.
Amateur journalism was literally what it sounds like. It was a group of kids would get together, and it was a youngster thing. 10-year-old, 14-year-old would get together, and they would produce their own literary magazine, and then they would print 500 of them and distribute them locally, and the rest would be mailed out to a central location, and they would be bundled together and mailed out to other amateur journalist clubs. And Haverhill was actually a very big hot spot for amateur journalism. At one point, we had the largest amateur journalism club in Massachusetts other than the one in Boston itself.
No, let's bring this all back together.
Bring it back home.
Okay, so we're going to step backwards. We're going to go back to H.P. Lovecraft and Lovecraftian.
Backwards.
Where are we?
Ken Faig.
Ken Faig.
Ken Faig's story is a cozy. And it is a cozy where a woman in Cincinnati, who is an antique dealer, goes into a used bookstore, finds a bound collection of sermons, which apparently, I didn't know this. Ken can even out-historian me when it comes to writing fiction. And they find bound in this collection of a minister's sermons a small booklet which they think is lost early Whittier poems.
Oh.
And it goes from there. Is it a forgery? Is it not a forgery? If it is a forgery, why is there a dead professor in Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh,
no less.
Oh my goodness! And I was always thinking that Toledo was funnier than Cincinnati, but it isn't. It isn't about humor now, is it? Maybe that'll be another one in a future anthology.
That'll be the fourth one.
There is absolutely no way on earth, with my warped sense of humor, I would ever even attempt to do a book on Whittier humor.
Well, it was out there.
Book 5.
Book 5. Dave gets lynched.
He makes up this name for our Great Lake. Calls it Canosa, probably leaves the ceremony giggling, and that's what we call it today. So maybe that's warped sense of humor, right?
Oh, there's a little more subtlety in his humor than I think just naming the lake Canosa.
All right. So maybe we can work in one more author during this break. You actually alluded to her, Susan Oleksiw. Oleksiw.
And there's a W at the end, and I have never gotten the name right. I thought my name was bad. What can I tell you about Susan's? Susan's is a hard one to describe without giving away anything.
Well, then maybe we shouldn't. What's the name of her story?
I don't remember. I've been staring at these stories for 6 months. You're lucky I remember who's in it.
All right, so we have Miss Larcom
Yes.
Of course, he meets the neighbors, and that's Miss Larcom. The connection is...
That's Lucy Larcom coming to Amesbury to visit Whittier and getting involved in a murder. She's sort of Jessica Fletcher.
All right, and that's Murder, She Wrote?
Correct.
All right, we have, we're going to take this is going to completely shock Chris, but we're not, okay, now we are. Had to wait till we're actually at the quarter hour. All right, we're going to go to, Chris is asking me to hold. No? Okay, we can go to...
3 words, sounds like...
Yeah, so we play charades here through the studio glass. We're going to take a break this hour, and I believe It's Insight Daily, new program here on WHAV. Just 2 minutes. We'll be back in just a second.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
Why pay $250 to $350 a year for half as much news? On air and online, 97.9 WHAV provides more Greater Haverhill news more often than any other sources combined. Support the only Haverhill-based news source with your tax-deductible local news membership by clicking on the membership tab at whav.net.
Catch the wave!
Every week on Making Contact, you'll hear voices from the United States and around the globe, speaking on issues vital to all of us.
We report on economic, political, and social trends.
We also look at the issues that drive popular movements globally.
You can hear Making Contact on this non-commercial radio station.
Making Contact, Sunday mornings at 7 on 97.9 WHAV.
Insight Daily Radio. Conversations with today's most influential authors, actors, musicians, artists, and creative minds. Dr. Gary Small is director of the UCLA Longevity Center and author of the new book, The Alzheimer's Prevention Program.
I've been in the field of Alzheimer's research and treatment for 3 decades. I was always interested in the interaction of the mind and the body when I was studying psychiatry, and I figured that older people have a lot of medical problems, and that drew me to geriatric psychiatry. And once I got into that field, I was struck by how the biggest issue was memory, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. People were so frightened of losing their minds, and I wanted to figure out how I could help. I wrote the Alzheimer's Prevention Program because there's so much new research, new science on Alzheimer's disease, and everyone's confused about it. And so what we did was to put together not just the latest science so it's understandable, but take that a step further, put it into a practical program so people can do something about it right now to protect their brains and possibly stave off the symptoms of Alzheimer's. Western medicine tends to fix a problem after it occurs. The Alzheimer's Prevention Program focuses on protecting our brain health while we still have it. The Alzheimer's Prevention Program doesn't have to be a chore, doesn't have to be a challenge. In fact, we've made it simple, easy, and fun. If somebody tries the 7-day program, they'll find that they enjoy it, they feel empowered, and they'll be on the road to protecting their brain for the rest of their life.
Dr. Gary Small, author of the Alzheimer's Prevention Program. Keep your brain healthy for the rest of your life. There's more online, insightdailyradio.org.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
About 10 minutes before the hour, 97.9 FM, WHAV. This is the Open Mic Show. I'm Tim Coco. With me, David Goudsward and Scott Goudsward. And we have a caller on the line who has a question for them. You are on the Open Mic. You're on the Open Mic.
How you doing?
Great. What's your question?
Not a question at all.
Oh, what's your comment?
I just wanted to say thank you so much. I've been a long-time listener, and I called last week and got tickets to go to the Firefighters Museum for that event on Saturday night.
Did you go?
I went.
Wonderful.
And I talked to Frank on the radio, and he's a great guy. And then I went and got the tickets from his wife. That's a total sweetheart. She's unbelievable. She's a nice person. And then I went to the event and had a great time.
Wonderful,
and
wonderful.
I just wanted to thank the radio station. It was so good. It was unbelievable.
Well, thank you. Actually, we're very happy. You know, one of the things that contest did for us is introduce us to someone who listens that we don't know about. So we're really pleased to have you as a listener to WHAV.
I've been a long-time listener. This is my second time calling. You know, it was just so good that I won the tickets. I was just so happy just to win the tickets. Forget about going. The going part was great as well. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, actually. Well, we'll have more prizes and more contests. But while you're on the line, any questions for our guests? About while you're here, any questions for our guests that you're wondering about?
It's very important.
Just keep listening. It's a cool radio station, and you hear a lot of things that are very important and informational, you know?
Well, thank you very much. That's the goal. The point is that what Haverhill was missing was local information, community calendar, local news, things like open mics. So thank you very much.
But it's informational as well. You know, you want to know what's going on, not only in Haverhill, but in the world as well.
Well, that's true. We have
it's really good.
Big footprint. So thank you very much for your call, and thank you for calling back. And we're so happy you won those tickets.
That's why I called. I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Well, thank you for listening, and we really appreciate that.
All right.
All right. Have a good night. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yes, that was the caller last week who won 2 tickets valued at $120 to the 143rd Run for the Roses Kentucky Derby at the Haverhill Firefighting Museum Saturday, which was another one of these many events, and unfortunately it's just hard to cover them all in a 5-minute newscast, one of the many wonderful events that took place in Haverhill last weekend. I think Haverhill's off to a good start for the season. It's just really not even Memorial Day, and we've got everything happening, including having 2 great authors here in the studio. We'll reverse the order, Scott Goudsward and David Goudsward. Why don't you tell us in the time that we have left? Well, first of all, I'll tell you, how do they get this book?
I can't hear a word you're saying. I still have the microphone earphones on.
Well, you can take those off now.
Well, you can get them on Amazon. I believe they're available on Barnes & Noble. Don't quote me on that one. There are Snowbounds at the library friend shop. You can get them both at the Whittier Birthplace.
That's right. That's right. And we'll make sure that Murder Among Friends is brand new, so there'll be other distribution. We'll get those out. At some point, you might be able to get it at the Amesbury Whittier home. That's where Whittier moved to.
Is that available through Postmortem?
Yes. Yes. The publisher is Postmortem Press. Cheery as it is, and their website as well will be carrying both books. Actually, it carries all of our books, the horror guides and the Whittier anthologies.
Now, what's very important, typically, authors and the editor, they have the royalties. And in this case, the editor, David Goudsward, sitting right next to me, and the authors, including Scott with last year's book, have donated all of their rights to Whittier Birthplace. So when you buy the book, whether it's on Amazon or at a store, the royalties come to Whittier Birthplace to help keep that 325-plus year old home in great shape. And so we thank you very much for your
I don't want to toot my own horn more than I normally do, which is more than adequate amount of time. But I think it's important to point out, if you buy it at the Whittier Birthplace, they make a certain amount of money. If you buy it through Amazon or online, they're still going to make some money. So no matter where you get the book, it's going to benefit the Birthplace.
And you got to keep Gus employed.
That's right. And Gus, our curator, is beloved. And matter of fact, many people attended the YMCA tribute to Gus last year. And I have to say, there's always a new story about Gus. And
I have one. I have a new story about Gus.
Does it beat the one about him dressed as a leprechaun?
Yes.
Oh. All right.
Okay.
I went up to the Birthplace Friday in order to just go over the last-minute arrangements on the shoe shop, which I used to call the carriage house, but I've been scolded one too many times.
Oh, no, actually, it's interchangeable, but I've been trying to move people toward the shoe shop, which is what it was.
And he recognized me, and I told him we were coming in Sunday, and he says, is that woman coming? And I said, which one? The one who keeps coming up here for visits. He meant author Kristi Petersen Schoonover, who's in both books. And apparently the reason why he was questioning that is because her last visit, she had a 4.5-hour tour of the building, and even Gus has upper limits on how long he will talk.
Well, it's funny, but Gus, he protests too much because Professor Nomoto from Japan, who translated Snowbound into Japanese and issued the book, and it reached, from left to right, back to front. And he spent quite a bit of time at the Birthplace. Gus just does a great job. And if you want to know about Whittier, you can take the 15-minute course, the 2-hour course, or you can sign up for a 6-week program, I think.
Yeah, by the end of 6 weeks, you may be sweeping the floors.
Well, of course, we always need volunteers, but thank you very much. Okay, we have about 4 minutes left, so let's talk about Horror Guide to Northern New England. Again, that's another Postmortem Press book, also available at Amazon. Did you say Barnes & Noble?
Barnes & Noble. I believe you can buy it from Goodreads.
And any bookstore can order it for you.
Actually, I neglected to ask. Are all of these available electronically?
Yes.
Kindle at least.
All right, so Kindle as well, so that you want to read it on your phone. It's amazing. I picked up some books off my bookshelf this weekend because I don't want to hold my phone. I think a book needs to have some depth.
Yeah, I think there's a textile.
Yeah.
Tactile. Yeah. God, it's been a long day.
If it's a collectible book, like if it's a book that I've got not numbered or signed, I have to buy the Kindle version because I can't open that book.
But New Hampshire is very well represented. Towns we all know. Mystery Hill is in there. Plastow is in there. I'm trying to think local towns. Atkinson, I don't think is
Jonathan Buck makes it into this book. Now, those of you who listen to WHAV or read the Haverhill Heritage series, David wrote that as well. Tell them about Jonathan Buck.
Jonathan Buck was a Haverhill resident who got into a little bit of a spat over real estate and water rights, so he left. And he went up to Maine and became a founding father of a town that eventually would be named after him, Bucksport. That was the end of it. He Indian raids, went back to Haverhill, went back to Maine, became elderly and beloved, and when he died, they put a stone up. 2 generations later decided that since he was a founding father and their grandfather, he should have a better stone. So they put a memorial up to him, and there's a flaw in the stone base that looks like a lady's foot. Now, because of that flaw, and they can't get rid of it, it's in the stone, legends began to set up that he had an affair with a witch, and when he dumped her, she cursed him, or he hanged a woman to take her property and she cursed him. A lot of cursing involved in it. But the bottom line is the stain came first, not the legend. So it's a great story, and it's very widely disseminated, but it's not anything other than a great old Yankee yarn.
So you're saying he left Haverhill and got famous?
Another one.
Good.
Another one.
I'm not sure being dead for 100 years and having somebody claim you got cursed by a witch counts as famous. But
well, maybe infamous. But it was actually just a coincidence because this book is about northern New England, and yet I picked up something from Haverhill in there. But all kinds of things. Is there a Plastow one in here?
Yes.
Plastow's all over that.
Plastow is in there at least twice that I can remember off the top of my head because of Lovecraftian connections.
Oh, there we are. See, there's the quiz, folks.
It's alphabetical by state, so it's Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont.
I was just looking at the index, but
index isn't geographic; it's only names and titles.
Okay. But actually, there's other places people will be familiar with. I see Gunkwit is here.
Old Orchard Beach.
For the Maine, Old Orchard Beach. Let me just kind of thumb back.
A lot of Stephen King country in there.
Stephen King, Corinna, or is that how you say that?
It's a fictional town. You can call it what you want.
The Eastland Woolen Mill, used for scenes of mill equipment in operation in the film version of Graveyard Shift, 1990. 1996, the mill closed.
It's not a fictional town.
The mill closes part of the cleanup. You wrote it.
Yeah, but like everybody else, I don't really read it.
No.
You write one, you forget about it, you write, so you start the next one again.
But Stephen King returns to Corinna in Insomnia, 1994. Well, okay, listen, this is another one of these, and it's safe to say what the price is.
$17.
All right.
Ish.
18 on the back cover.
$18.
It depends on where you buy it.
Depends where you buy it. Horror Guide to Northern New England, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, 18. And if at Whittier Birthplace, let's just go through these. I don't think it's listed here, but I think yesterday we had the opening day special at $15, but they're normally 18.
No, that one is actually 16 because it's smaller than Zombies.
Oh, 16 for Murder Among Friends. You see, what do I know? And then, no, don't answer that. And then Snowbound with Zombies is 18, and that is marked. Okay.
Yeah, and again, those are suggested manufacturing places. I sell them for 15 at conventions.
Right.
In fact,
easier to make changes why we did it yesterday.
Math is terrible.
Well, I guess we are out of time. I want to thank you for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Scott, you're more local, so we're going to have you make a regular spot because, frankly, we're looking for all the gossip and dirt on your brother, and frankly, he can't be here.
And he has another book he forgot to bring.
I have several books I forgot to bring.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just real quick. What are the other titles you
lay it
want?
on him, sweet lips?
The one I was going to bring is called Wicked Witches. It's an anthology for the New England horror writers. I co-edited that. We released it last year at Salem, Massachusetts during the Halloween weekend. So that was kind of fun.
Oh, great.
And
Sounds like
this
perfect.
year we're doing one called Wicked Haunted. We're sticking with the whole Wicked thing, from Merrimack Valley and whatnot.
Is that the Massachusetts thing, or
yeah,
no?
That is.
Okay.
It's wicked cool.
And we're doing that again at the Derby Market Open Square in Salem on Halloween weekend. We're releasing it then.
Makes sense.
And it should hopefully be available for a soft release at the Halloween Book Fair. Or at
the Book Fair.
The Book Festival, sorry,
Book
at the library in October.
Oh, okay.
The Halloween Book Festival that Chris Golden sponsors.
And another one, Chris Golden appears in Snowbound with Zombies.
As does local author John McIlveen.
Right, and John McIlveen's going to be playing a larger role in next year's book.
We hope.
We hope. So we'll get him on the spot, too. He's been on this program. Was there another title?
I was just going to keep pimping my zombie book, Fountain of the Dead.
Okay.
Also out from Postmortem Press.
All right. So plenty of titles. You can look these up at Amazon. Just look up Goudsward. You'll get them both.
Yeah, there's only one other book that we didn't write under our last name, and that's a cartoonist relative of ours up in Pennsylvania. And we're going to take him out to get rid of it, so we own that department.
All right, so Goudsward on Amazon.com. All right, we are now late, so Chris can do an I Told You So. We're late coming back. This is WHAV LP Haverhill. We'll be back.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 8:04.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. By all accounts, Haverhill's big weekend was a giant success, with throngs of residents venturing downtown Friday and Saturday despite damp conditions, and then venturing out to the countryside for Sunday's brighter sky. Like the debutante stepping out to society for the first time, Haverhill's Deb was a reimagined downtown, some of it temporary, beginning with nightlife during Creative Haverhill's first Friday. Shops opened their doors, performers put on shows, bands played music, and poetry was read. While no one was keeping track of receipts, business owners hoped cash registers rang enough. Saturday's Better Block along Lower Merrimack Street delivered something for all senses: colorful art, loud music, aromas from kitchens, new foods to taste, and beer to sip, and fist-gripping bicycle handles. The block, backed by the state's commercial finance agency, Mass Development, was designed as a prototype to attract more local business, encourage more time outdoors, add more promote beauty and bring more bicycles and foot traffic. It achieved its goals as organizers hoped that the downtown block would bring more friends, laughter, and conversations. Being an election year, most city officials made appearances, some greeting voters from new street-side dining bump-outs along the city's main drag, while others worked the crowd. Almost all ignored elephants along the street, a large swath of promising yet still empty storefronts. The state is all but betting the farm on downtown Haverhill, spending tens of millions of dollars to prove a post-industrial gateway city can make a comeback. Speaking of farms, Sunday's sun and mild temperatures brought out visitors to Whittier Birthplace to hear authors read from their contributions to a new Whittier-inspired book. Murder Among Friends, the second anthology in an annual series of new works edited by David Goudsward, made its debut Sunday afternoon. Best-selling author Edith Maxwell, who contributed Murder in the Summer Kitchen, was the first to read from her work.
In the gloaming of the 11th month afternoon, my attention had wandered from the literary conversation in John Greenleaf Whittier's parlor. The unmistakable crack of a gun brought me to my senses, and I jumped in my seat. Another report followed in quick succession. All the eyes in the room went wide with mine. John's, my niece Faith's, those of several other friends, and Celia Thaxter, John's famous friend, whose work we friends were here to discuss.
Susan Oleksiw read from her Miss Larcom Meets the Neighbors, and despite the dark genre, Judi Calhoun's reading of her Exposed for Murder brought laughter.
Is it a raccoon? Came the nasal Fran Drescher voice from inside. I told you to take out the garbage. You never listened to me. Shut up, Mona, the pudgy man yelled. Your voice will wake the dead. Go back to sleep. You don't have to go be so insulting, she whined. Maybe you should sleep on the sofa.
Greg Norris, a screenplay writer who wrote 2 episodes of Star Trek Voyager, read from Antiques.
The image shouldn't have seemed out of place. Vivi Driscoll, still in her party hat and lilac sweater, except for that particular screen, whose camera was aimed at the back patio. The streamers on the wheelchair's handlebar whipped madly about in the early spring breeze. And then a second figure passed across the patio, a man. She only saw him briefly as he wheeled Vivi Driscoll away and out of sight. The man had a mustache.
While some of the weekend's activities are temporary, a number of elements will remain for the foreseeable future. Murals, such as one by Brian Canty, will continue to brighten the downtown. Outdoor dining bump-outs will remain all summer, and First Fridays continues next month and into fall. While downtown Haverhill's Better Block was temporary, City Councilor Andy Vargas wants residents to know how it will continue transforming the city. He has invited Mass Development's Transformative Development Initiative's Noah Koretz to speak at Tuesday's council meeting about the next steps. Haverhill High School students Tuesday will manage a hypothetical $100,000 stock market portfolio and invest in real stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas plans to visit Haverhill students participating in the Capitol Hill Challenge during the late morning. Tsongas nominated Haverhill and Lawrence High Schools to participate in the national competition hosted by the SIFMA Foundation. There are 5 student teams at Haverhill High School. The competition ends Friday, and the top 10 teams in the country will attend an awards event in Washington, D.C. next month. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Tim Coco.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Best with wave weather. Partly to mostly cloudy, upper 30s through the night. During the day Tuesday, limited sun, a lot of clouds, maybe a spot shower or a sprinkle in the upper 50s. Periods of clouds, upper 30s on Tuesday night. Wednesday, partial sun with a brief shower in the upper 50s. This is Gary Best. Your next wave weather is coming up in 30 minutes.
This is listener-supported community radio, WHAV. WHAV is the Merrimack Valley's Pacifica affiliate.
WHAV, Merrimack Valley, open mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents The Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. I'm your host, Tim Coco. In Master Control, Chris Porter, radio DJ, the man with 5 radio jobs, all of them unpaid. And Cindy Driver, we haven't come up with a slogan for you yet. Cindy Driver. There's something in that name that will work. But anyway, we're very happy. Cindy Driver, of course, provides much of the photography at WHAV.net. Yes, sometimes radio stories also are nice text stories with photographs. All right. Many thanks to our guests who are here, Scott and David Goudsward, or as David would prefer, David and Scott Goudsward. Probably listening on the radio now, so I better do that. But if you would like to go to Whittier Birthplace, absolutely free. Just be the first caller to ask for a free pass to Whittier Birthplace, and it's a twofer. It also lets you into Whittier's Amesbury home. So call in and get that, 978-374-1900. Before we go to the phones, just a couple of program notes. Reminder that WHAV will be broadcasting live early Saturday night from the Haverhill High School Athletic Hall of Fame inauguration. 11 nominees to the Hall of Fame. Among them, Carlos Pena, who is hopefully Hector Longo, who is going to be WHAV's sports announcer at the event. Perhaps will bring us an interview. We'll see how that plays out. But that will be live from Caleb Dustin Hunking School, the new school in Bradford. Two more things. Quick contest here. If you'd like to nominate someone to win an Albee D's second generation Italian bakery cake, all you have to do is nominate someone who's having a birthday in June or a couple having an anniversary in June. Chris will take their names and we'll draw the winner the last Monday of the month that we're on the air. Now, all you have to do is just come on the open mic and say happy birthday or happy anniversary, and that's very easy. We still have the Kimball Tavern trivia question. Who's the man who on Lowell Avenue in Haverhill who collected hubcaps? All right, we have several hints here. Charlie was his first name. That came from the judges at Kimball Tavern Antiques, corner of Salem and South Main Streets. And they're providing a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques if you can answer the question. All right. His nickname was Keista. We have all but his last name, and that's all you have to provide to win a $10 gift certificate, same as cash, to Kimball Tavern Antiques. Let me get rid of the other mics so we don't have as much of an echo. Is that better? And I took care of it. All right. So you could do that. So we have prizes. So you can win a Whittier Birthplace free admission simply by asking for it. And don't do that. And then you could win a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques by answering the trivia question. And you can win a birthday or anniversary cake. So there we are. Prizes there. Let's go to the telephones. You are on the open mic.
What do you think takes that ham?
All right. You are on the open mic. What are you eating over there, Jerry?
How are you? Good evening. How are you?
Good. Welcome back to the show.
I love the poetry. I love the poetry.
Well, but you were just a lover of the arts. You sing.
Yes.
You sing. You sang for us last week. You tell some great stories about being up against Georgie K's band in a competition. He was your competitor, I believe. You told us
you
about...
mean the one where my father filled out all the cards and I still lost.
And then you told us about...
He really didn't do that.
Your love of Robert Frost, you've told us about.
Yeah.
And you've been to Whittier Birthplace, is that right?
Yeah, how are you tonight?
All right.
I wanted to talk about a couple of things.
Okay, let's hear it.
I understand they're going to do an awful lot of renovation at the water treatment plant, huh?
That's right. Now, WHAV had this story months ago, and that is there is going to be a major, I think it borders on replacement of the 40-year-old water treatment plant in Haverhill.
Yeah, I know. What was his name there? He was in charge of
Well,
Herb Nickerson. Remember him?
Way back when, Herb Nickerson. Now, I can tell you some interesting stories. Maybe you know them about Herb Nickerson.
Yeah.
One of the problems the lake probably still has is that it attracts birds. And he would go out, Herb Nickerson, who was the water superintendent, I think that was
Herb
the title.
Nickerson. You know, actually, he worked for the Commonwealth of Mass for a while.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was in the Northeast region with me.
Yeah,
basically,
I can picture him now.
I think he was a graduate of Lowell University.
But he used to use divining rods, and he would walk out to the lake with the rods, and although some people use it to find water, he found a way to tell the birds to go away, and they did, amazingly. So, well...
You know the thing that other thing that I wanted to talk about, though, is, I read the story, and it was a pretty good story, but they didn't even mention about the major problem in the old buildings and schools in Haverhill and Lawrence,
which is lead.
There was an article in the Tribune about Methuen and what they found. But I know that when I looked at the data, which actually came out 2 months ago.
That's right. The state. I have the state report. You're absolutely right.
Story said. I looked at Haverhill's and Lawrence's, and in both those communities, the lead in schools was significantly above. A number of the schools was significantly above what they call the alert levels for both lead and copper.
That's right.
And I was a little disappointed that there was nothing said in today's Tribune, and so I called them up on it, and I asked them. They didn't seem to know anything about it.
Let me ask you about this. You're an expert. You're an expert in this area. I noticed that, and we had a story on this as well a few months ago, that Methuen has changed some of its fixtures. Is it possible that Is it possible that a single fixture?
They had quite a number of fixtures, which weren't known as drinking areas, but they probably should have been posted anyway.
I mean, like the science
but they
lab
did
and
find
so on.
one at the comprehensive grammar school that was really significantly alert, above the alert levels. And in today's story, it said that was changed immediately. I like the way North Andover took action. They got the results in the same day. They held a meeting, and they not only did they address the problems, but they also sent an email to every parent who attended a school in the city, in the town of North Andover.
Okay.
Every parent got a letter telling them about what had happened, what they had found, and how they had mitigated, and it was done immediately. So.
No, it sounds like the right way.
Like,
the right way to do it.
In Haverhill and in Lawrence, hasn't been any word about it. We're talking about quite a lot of money too, Tim.
Yes. Now, tell me though about can a single fixture, a faucet, by itself generate that much lead? It isn't just leaching from other lines.
Well, it depends upon the age of the facility. For example, in the old days, they used to some of these buildings. For example, the Searles building in Methuen, I think it was constructed in 1896, and obviously in those days they used to use what's called a lead gooseneck, and that's what they found in Flint, Michigan. Really, they found a lot of old connections, and the reason why they made it out of lead was because if the elevation changed or anything, the pipe wouldn't crack. It would bend.
So it was a flexible material.
But little did they know that lead was toxic to especially children, and until a pediatrician at Flint took a sample of blood from one of his patients and noticed the lead concentration was so high, and then all hell broke loose. Flint.
I imagine
had changed sources. They had gone from one of the Great Lakes to the Flint River. And what I read about the Flint River, even GE, who had a plant there, wouldn't use it for processed water. So anyway, they equipped it with supposedly corrosion control equipment, but it didn't work. And many of these old buildings with lead goosenecks, and many of these buildings where lead solder was used, and that was the latest thing. It wasn't too many years ago. Tim, can you recall when lead solder was outlawed?
No, it's funny you mentioned that because my father was a plumber, and of course that's what we used. And one of my earliest memories is cleaning the copper fittings so that the solder would stick better to the pipe.
Exactly.
So you're right. But, and then those of us who do some electronics work.
But see, when you have two dissimilar metals, what you do is you set up a chemical, actually it's an electrical reaction, depending upon where the metal is in what they call the array of the electromotive force. And if you set up copper and lead, or
see, folks, very educational
lead,
program
connected to galvanized, or copper connected to galvanized, one of the pipes, whether it's in the case of copper and galvanized, one of them becomes what's called the sacrificial anode, and that's the one that you'll see that turns black, it rusts, etc. And so that's what happens when you mix two different pipes, or in the other case when you don't have a good what they call a control program. Generally, water, is pretty okay if it has a pH of above 7.0.
Sure.
If you're up in the 7/8, C8, that the alkalinity at pH doesn't corrode the pipes as like if the pH of the water was on the acid side below 7.
Well, I guess that explains what the problem is. I imagine, Jerry, though, that since you worked for DEP for 51 years, New probably has it a little bit harder because we're so old. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. The thing in this particular case also, though, was that's kind of unusual and is kind of upsetting to me is that Methuen actually still owns two buildings that they're leasing, and I've been trying to get the Board of Health to at least write a letter to these two buildings and say, hey, as a result of what we found in schools, I think you people who are now leasing this building should do some monitoring yourself.
Oh, so are these?
Because the two buildings in question are the Lawrence Boys Club and Methuen Boys Club, which used to be what's called the Hubert Barker School, and that was built in the early 1900s. And the other is the
well, maybe they're listening
Muslim
tonight.
School on Waterland Street, which is in the early 1900s, and where these old buildings are, and where they used lead for solder, and also the so-called gooseneck for a connection to the main. Those are the areas where it should be tested. And in the case of Methuen, Tim, it may well be, and I've tried to get counselors to ask our legal expert, Attorney D'Agostino, to ask him if the city of Methuen, would be liable in the case of a situation similar or not as egregious as Flint. But what do you think? I'm not an attorney, and do you have any ideas or feelings about it?
I mean, I imagine the reason you're probably having trouble getting an answer is that, well, lawyers don't like to announce liability, but it does seem to me if Methuen is the landlord and it has information that similar
Me
buildings.
too. That's the way I feel. You know.
So it seems to me that
And all it takes
at least a
is-
courtesy
and all
call
it takes
would
is
help.
a pediatrician to take a sample of a school child and get find lead or copper. Most primarily lead is the worst. Find it in the drinking water, and man, they would be lined up at the front door, wouldn't they? The attorneys.
No, you're absolutely right. And that
Hey,
that's
the other thing, Tim, also though, is there any credence in that idea of using some mill building, not in Haverhill, but in an adjoining community it's my understanding that they were looking at it as a possibility of growing marijuana?
I guess it's an interesting question. I guess it depends. I don't know if you followed this, and maybe this is not entirely where you're going with this, but Groveland voters last week had a choice to make, and they decided they didn't want any marijuana facilities in their town.
Oh, okay. So they already voted on that, because I know that a bunch of people were looking there, and they were also looking at the Malden Mills in Lawrence. See, they were talking about terrace gardens, and that's the way they grow in Colorado.
Right,
They
right.
use hydroponics and ultraviolet, and they grow the marijuana indoors, in a mill or a vacant area like that. And the crop, you get double and triple the crop that you would get out in the field.
I suppose, but it sounds like kind of a big energy waster too.
Yeah, well, but the money. If you watch the financial news, you're going to see that as a result of these states, using not only marijuana for medical use, but they're also using it for pleasure. There's going to be an awful lot of money made. You know that, right?
No, well, that's one of the things we saw in Haverhill.
But I still think I still feel and think it's a gateway drug, and as the experience that my wife have had with our son who passed.
No, I understand.
Well,
I think
I still feel that.
I think
that
Dr.
marijuana
John.
Was
I think
the
Dr.
beginning of it.
I think Dr. John Maddox, the Haverhill pediatrician for Haverhill Public Schools, and he really worked to make sure Haverhill did not accept that facility.
Good for him. I'd like to congratulate him. He should get some kind of a Medal of Honor, or he should get the Capallo Award. I got nominated once for that. It's out of the Commonwealth get nominated for duty above and beyond the call of duty, as they call it. And so I didn't win the prize. There were 10 nominations. I was one of them. But we got a nice dinner in Boston, and I met Governor Dukakis, and I was up on the stage, and I got a what do you call it? I got a pen and pencil set anyway.
And you got dinner. I'm afraid, Jerry, we are out of time for this show, but thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on lead in the water.
Yeah, I'd like to see Haverhill not only do some retrofitting at the plant, but also that. But maybe we could get Brian Dempsey to submit some legislation to augment what was already spent by the governor, $2.7 million on the monitoring. Now that we know where these problems are, it's like, the money, that would be really a good use of money, really.
It seems like a logical next step. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. All right, have a good night. Thank you. All right, that'll do it for the Open Mic Show. Back next week, and I believe we may have some other authors on. I think we're working on firming up the schedule. I may have a fill-in host next week, partly because we're going to be doing some work at the Transmitter Building at Silver Hill, and I might get tied up there. But we'll see how that next week. But either way, the Open Mic Show will be back. 97.9 FM, WHAV. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Open mic.
Join Tim Coco live on the Open Mic again next Monday night. 30. The opinions expressed on the Open Mic Show are not necessarily those of WHAV, its underwriters, or affiliated stations. The Open Mic Show came to you from the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom.
This is listener-supported community radio. WHAV is the Merrimack Valley's Pacifica affiliate.
Catch the wave.
Every Monday night, the Open Mic Show brings you fascinating guests, explores local history, and gives you a chance to praise the powers that be or vent your frustration. Tim Coco, your host, inviting you to join the chorus of community voices beginning at 6:30 Monday nights right here on 97.9 WHAV. You may also watch this staple of democracy live at WHAV.tv.
Wave.